would be inappropriate. What's happening, YouTube? My name is Immortal Coil. I'm going to play this one a little bit closer to the chest than I do with most of them. There are pieces of television and motion picture that for all of us are formulative of our character. And for me, one of those series was Star Trek The Next Generation. And this particular episode, The Perfect Mate, really strikes close to home. And I'm going to explain it to you. So let's break it down. This is a story about a metamorph named Kamala, played by Famke Janssen. And a metamorph is a mutant, a curiosity, able to sense what a potential mate wants and become that for him. So in a way, it's the ultimate male fantasy. You know, you can read my mind, sense what I want, and then do that for me, and you do that out of your own volition. Sign me up. But then you juxtapose that with Jean-Luc Picard, who has such a sense of duty that, number one, he would never use her in that way, but number two, he's forced into this situation where he has to work with her, and we'll talk about that in a minute. And it's a curiosity in and of itself that Patrick Stewart, the actor, and Famke Janssen, the actress, would come together in the X-Men franchise, where again she's playing a mutant. They don't have a romantic arc, but there is a symmetry between the two stories, and it's interesting how that those two situations link the franchises. In the story, Kamala is in the final stages of what's called the finis Rahl, which, if you compare it to Vulcan physiology, is like plaque tau. Okay? With Vulcans, they go through a mating cycle every 7 years, standard Terran years, where they have to mate or fight or they die. Okay? With Mr. Spock, that was very alluring for the female audiences, you know. Most of the women that I talk to, they're more interested in Spock than they are Captain Kirk, you know, which is interesting to me. But in the finis Rahl, Kamala's body is producing pheromones like crazy. So every guy on the ship is basically like at full mast every time they're around her. And it proves disruptive. The first guy that we see encounter her is Commander Riker. And he escorts her to quarters, and he's very professional. But you know Riker. And then they kiss, but he backs himself up. He's like, okay, this has been educational. But I'll see you later. Dip. And this is so funny. He's like,
Riker to bridge. You need me, I'll be in holodeck 4.
and then the ship flies by, and you know what he's doing. Holodeck 4. That's like Pornhub in the fucking 24th century. I'm just saying. Then we see later on in 10 Forward, there's a group of miners who are just like hitting on her and just being boisterous. And Worf comes up and he's like, "Is there a problem?" And they're like, "No, sir." Because he's like this and they're like down here, and, you know, they're miners, they don't know how to fight. And then she's like awestruck by him the whole time. And once the crowd has calmed down, she looks at him and she goes, and Worf is like almost turned around and he hears that and he goes, and you can see him smile. Worf fucking never smiles. I've seen him smile like 2-3 times. That was one of those times around the Metamorph. You know, and that's what's funny because Data was her chaperone. The ambassador that brought her on board was concerned that she would prove disruptive to the crew. And he said, every man is going to be fighting over her. And Picard was like, not every man. And assigned her to Data. Because he knew that Data wouldn't have any desire. Even though he's fully functional. Tasha Yar taught us. But following the incident in 10 Forward, Kamala actually volunteers the fact that she shouldn't be accessible to the whole ship. And Picard agrees, he relents, he says, well, you know, I'm confident in the performance of my crew, but there's civilians and guests on board and I can't fucking say for sure what they're gonna do. So, okay, let's reevaluate our strategy. And she goes, I will agree of my own will to stay in my quarters, but only if you come and visit me. And Picard's like, I don't know if that's a good idea. Chancellor Briam, this is Kamala's boss and the negotiator for one side of the war. He ends up getting bribed by a pair of Ferengi. And they're trying to pay him gold and say like, hey, you know, if you just like give us the bitch, then we'll jet off and then you can be a rich man. But Briam is a man of honor and he is committed to his duty. He's 200 fucking years old. He's not gonna give in to gold, you know, and he's not gonna give up Kamala, who he's probably known most of her life, to a couple of orange fucking trolls. Fuck off with that. And he throws the gold down on the floor, and the Ferengi are like, no, 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 what are you doing? And then like they actually knock him over onto a glass table, and one piece of the glass goes in his fucking neck. I don't think it cut his jugular because he would have just bled out instantly, but he's basically down for the count for most of the rest of the episode. So, you know what happens is Picard gets talked into representing the ambassador's people with the opposing party in the interest of peace. And the only advisor he has available is Kamala. And there's an epic line. They're sitting there going over the minutia, the finite details of whatever the fuck's supposed to be going on during business. And she goes, I don't understand. Why don't you find me attractive? And Picard quotable quotes, succinct retort, I find you unavailable. It's right after that we meet Chancellor Alrik. He's a fucking toad. He looks like something that you dig out from underneath your toenail, and he's pompous, and he's like Smeagol. He's a Smeagol hobbit. He's a potato. He's a red raisin. He's not impressive. And whoever actor played that guy, I have to give it to you. You made me hate you enough that I believed in the character. And he makes it clear, I'm far more interested in trade negotiations than I am in the metamorph. Fuck you, that's a sentient being. And here's the ironic thing, is that at the end of the Finisrael, Kamala is supposed to bond forever for the person she's going to be with. And the idea was that she was going to be with this toad fucking motherfucker and bond herself to this guy and be who she wanted him to be. But on the eve of the ceremony, her cycle ends and she bonds with Jean-Luc. And she tells him that to his face. She's like in her wedding gown. She looks gorgeous. And she looks him in the eye and says, I'll never love him. And Captain Picard is thinking, because they've talked about this before, the love of a woman versus the love of a ship. He chose loving a ship because I think in part he thought he would never find a woman who would understand him. But once he found one, he has to give her away. He has to walk her down the aisle as a bride, holding her hand, standing next to her, smelling her smell, feeling her energy, and give her to another man who raises the veil, plants a kiss on her face, and then shucks her aside because he wants to talk about the trade routes between the two fucking planets. Kamala has bonded with Picard, and he cannot have the thing that he wants most. And that is an emotion that I know better than anyone. The coup de grace of all this. Briam's neck is all healed up. Picard is walking him to the transporter, and he goes, I'm 200 years old. They chose me because I'm so old that my dick doesn't work anymore, but it works a little bit. How was your dick not able to work? And Picard goes,
Ambassador, have a safe trip home.
My name's Immortal Coil. If you like this video, give a thumbs up, subscribe, ding the bell for notifications, drop a comment, let me know what you want to see on future editions of Savage Spirituality. And if it so motivated you, share it with a friend. And remember, if you have the perfect mate, hug her close, clutch him tightly, make that inner light your reality.